Nothing witty today. I don't know why. All right, this is Norse Teaches Science, starring me, Mr. Norse. Biology edition, we're going to continue talking about cells dividing, and today we're going to talk about a part of cell division that no matter if it's mitosis or meiosis, the cell has to go through it. It's called interphase. And your goal is I can describe the cell cycle focusing on interphase. But remember, cell cycle is mainly for mitosis, but interphase does happen with meiosis, which we'll talk about in a later video. So the cell cycle, just reiterating, it has two parts. You have interphase, which is known as a prep phase, and mitosis, which is known as the dividing phase. Now, it occurs in something called somatic cells. So somatic cells, I don't know what color I want. Let's do this one. Somatic cells are also known as your body cells. So we're talking like the bone cells, the nerve cells, the fat cells, all right, those type of cells. It does not occur, mitosis does not occur in our sex cells. So no egg or ovum cells and no sperm cells. They go through a different dividing process, which we'll talk about in a later video. Like I said, it's called meiosis. All right, interphase, a little bit about it. The cell is really busy, and actually, most of the cell's life is spent in interphase. So the parent cell, the one that will divide, is very busy. It's growing and making organelles. It's copying DNA, which is really important. And it's preparing for mitosis. It's making sure the cell has everything it needs to for mitosis. But remember, the cell the cell spends most of its life in interphase. An interphase can be divided into three phases: G1 phase, S phase, and G2 phase. Let's talk about the G1 phase, also known as growth 1 phase, but I've also seen it called gap 1 phase. So if it starts with a G and there's a 1 and you're dealing with cell division, you're probably talking about interphase G1. Now, during this process, the cell is preparing for DNA synthesis. That just means it's preparing to have the DNA replicate or copy itself. And to do that, it's got to make a certain number of proteins. We're going to have a whole video series about DNA replication. But right now, just know that the DNA is going to be replicated sometime during interphase. And during G1 phase, it's just preparing for it. There's also rapid growth. Remember, I said cells like to remain small, but they don't stay small. They do grow over their lifetime. So there's some rapid growth during the G1 phase, probably from all the stuff it's making. During the S phase, which is known as the synthesis phase, the DNA is replicated. What that means is you go from having one copy of the DNA to having two copies of the DNA. Because remember, you have to give the identical amount of DNA to daughter cells in mitosis. So by the end of the S phase, each chromosome will have two identical chromatids. Now, they're not in the chromosome form yet because they're only in chromosomes when the cell's dividing, and the cell's not dividing yet. It's just preparing to divide. But when the cell is dividing, each chromosome will have two identical sister chromatids. The G2 phase is known as growth 2 phase, or again, gap 2 phase. During this time, they're making proteins, they're making organelles, and they're making energy because the cell's going to need a lot of energy during mitosis. Now, question: what organelle makes the energy for the cell? Don't remember, go back and check the organelle video. But that would be the mitochondria. the powerhouse of the cell. Hopefully you're getting that. All right. So that's all about interphase. That's what it happens. Now, after interphase, we're going to get into mitosis. We're going to do a video on that next. But I hope you learned something today. And like always, this is Mr. Norris, and he is signing out.